Defence Legal Division is responsible for the provision of legal advice and other legal services to the Australian Defence Force, the Minister of Defence, and Department of Defence. The government has deployed about 3,300 Australian Defence Force personnel to 14 operations overseas and in Australia to protect Australia and its national interests. The Australian government has treaties and agreements with many countries around the world that involves defence. Example: ANZ-US, SEATO, security agreements in New Zealand, Denmark, Canada, Singapore, Sweden and South Africa. The Australian government will always have a treaty with England because it is Australia's mother country, and we are still more or less under the laws of the monarchy. Although Australia is an independent nation, there are constitutional acts which keep Australia and England connected. It would cost the Australian government lots of money to supply aircrafts and weaponry for Australian soldiers to use in war. Also, to train soldiers to protect themselves in war and defend other countries costs a lot of money. Trade is a very important step towards globalization. Trading between countries requires peace treaties, so it is often assumed that if there are trade deals with other countries, it is a means of developing relationships with each other. Take for example ASEAN, trade between New Zealand and Australia, or TAFTA, which is a trade treaty between Thailand and Australia. Global trade is usually enforced by the federal government, not only because of its importance, but also for reasons of security, treaty, peace, globalization, all of which are mainly in power of the higher governments of our nation. Trade treaties often lead to a stronger bonding of other countries involved, which also means acceptance of each people in each other's countries. Non-government charity organizations find it much easier to travel and do their missionary work in these countries without worrying about a hindering government policy. The purpose of this agreement is to increase economy for trading goods, to increase the luxuries of each country, and coming together for peace and globalization. While these are the primary reasons, it is more rewarding than simply for the increase of capital or the boost of economy. Treaties promote globalization, multiculturalism, and acceptance of different cultures and beliefs. This is a step towards globalization. It is hardly possible to have trade without a treaty, at least a treaty of acceptance. Trade is one of the greatest strikes against intolerance of other countries. It forces those who have taken up trade to make peace. Trade leads to other benefits, diversity of types of goods as well. Its main advantage is the promotion of globalization and uniting the world closer together, a world of peace and tolerance. The division of countries leads to hate and intolerance. Trade with other countries implies acceptance and tolerance of each other, and is a statement in itself that we desire nothing but each other's welfare, the increase of one or the other's economy, or the increase of one or the other's standard of living. Trade increases countries and raises them to a high standard of living. Trade raises countries to a higher standard of living, giving people a better go at life. The lower class people have a better opportunity to increase their lifestyle by means of trade. The state government supplies for transport when countries come to tour Australia for sporting purposes, example cricket and rugby union. They also have to provide for security and police. Also, state government provides for money for new stadiums and renovations of stadiums, so it is better than it recently was. An example is Sydney Cricket Ground. There is a new stand going to be built and it's costing millions. The Australian government needs to grant in other countries access to their land so that other countries may be able to tour Australia and play in our country. The New South Wales government supplies for some of the needs of events. For example, just recently, the state government has decided to help pay for the new stand in Sydney and provide transport, which is costing New South Wales government a lot of money. But the money being spent well, and in the end, the Australian economy will be boosted. Australia continues to benefit from its multicultural makeup, one of the most diverse in the world, enjoying a wealth of ideas, cuisines and lifestyles. The last census reported that 23% of the population is foreign-born, and over 40% of Australians are of mixed cultural origins. Every 4 minutes and 8 seconds, Australia gains another international immigrant. Many foreign-born Australians came from Italy and Greece after World War II. Our recent immigrants have mostly come from New Zealand and the UK, as well as China, Vietnam, Africa and India, among many other places. Some 2.2% of the population identifies itself as of Aboriginal origin, and most live in the Northern Territory. Australia's other indigenous people, Torres Strait Islanders, are primarily Melanesian people living in North Queensland and on the islands of the Torres Straits, between Cape York and Papua New Guinea. Since 1945, more than 6 million people from across the world have come to live in Australia. Today, more than 20% of Australians are foreign-born, and more than 40% are of mixed cultural origin. In our homes, we speak 226 languages. After English, the most popular are Italian, Greek, Cantonese, and Arabic. Our rich cultural diversity is reflected in our food, which embraces most of the world's cuisines and artfully fuses quite a few of them. You'll find European flavors, the tantalizing spices of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, and bush tucker from our backyard on offer, everywhere from street stores to five-star restaurants. Tuck into Thai takeaway, dine out on the perfect Italian pasta, do tapas in our cities, Spanish strips, and feast on dumplings in Chinatown. You can also embrace our melting pot of cultures in many colorful festivals. See Samba and Caperia at Bondi's Brazilian South American Festival. Dance behind the Dragon Parade during the Chinese New Year, or stroll through the streets transformed into a lively piazza during the annual Italian celebrations. As a nation, we embrace a rainbow of religious belief, and you'll find Catholic and Anglican churches, Hindu, Sikh, and Buddhist temples, mosques, and synagogues lining our streets.